So some pointings, some concepts, what we're here to talk about. That nothing's happening to anyone, for no one. That there is an end to suffering, not to be confused with pain, more existential suffering. That there is a truth, or at least the term the truth is kind of like the last pointer. And thriving, really, happiness, life-wise, joy. If there's no questions, how about a spherical meditative exploration? That's something else that, it's an activity of thought, admittedly, but something else that happens from time to time that's very, very liberating. But it's really...
Sorry, I just joined. That sounds good.
Okay, yeah, we can kind of explore that. And the call is really Q&A, but if there's no questions, that's something I think worthwhile. So it's all direct experience. So a way to say it is you really got to kind of flip the switch of interpretation that what I'm about to share isn't about Phil's experience. So you have to be looking in your direct experience. So perceptually, the first thing would be, is it noticed that, and the answer might rightfully be no, but is it noticed that already that the shape of perception, if you will, is spherical, as opposed to there is an around like this, and there's an around like this. Yeah. And then is it noticed that not necessarily an active thought right now, but that there's a lingering assumption that there is something beyond what is directly perceived right now. So like from this direct experience, it could be assumed without really thinking it. It's like a lingering underlying belief that there could be the assumption that there is something on the other side of this wall. And then a sort of secondary assumption that though I'm not seeing it, surely there's something there. Or whatever's in front of you. It looks like, from the camera's views I can see, it looks like there's primarily walls in front of you, and then Kevin, I assume the windshield is uncovered, so there's the world in front of you. I'm not saying that there's nothing through the windshield, but I'm saying the horizon or the wall in front of you. Is it assumed that there's still an phenomena or an appearance of reality or the world beyond what you're directly seeing? And so
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and so what I'm suggesting is that conditioning dictates that assumption that there is, and direct experience is that there is not. So the inherent kind of baked in suggestion, belief isn't the right word, but for lack of a more accurate word, the suggestion is believe the direct experience over the conditioned assumption. Does that make sense?
Yes. Where's the, real quick question, where's the freedom in that? Like, why, I guess, it seems to me like it'd be an assumption either way, whether or not there is something or isn't. Like either way, you're kind of making an assumption. But I guess what's the benefit?
Well, on this hand, I guess a way to say it, on this hand, on staying with that, all that there is what's directly experienced. What would be the baked-in assumption?
I don't know.
Well, I suspect it might be that the assumption is that there isn't anything beyond direct experience. So then,
I kind of see where you're coming from. Sorry, but if I
no,
look outside, I will see objects.
Right. So I'm not saying to assume there isn't anything. I'm saying in accordance with direct experience, there isn't anything beyond perception. Then it can be noticed.
Okay, yeah, I get what you mean.
Like, let's say the thought arises that well, surely, and we're here to go deep. So I'll use Phil as a reference so as not to unnecessarily be too triggering or anything. Surely the thought could come up that even though Phil's wife and kids aren't in this direct experience, surely they exist. And what's being said is that's an assumption, and that assumption would be false. This is what exists.
That's crazy.
Well, it is crazy. It's very crazy relative to the conditioning. And so what's I'm sorry, I forgot the term that you used. What's the benefit, or what's the point, or what's the freeing aspect of it? Have you ever had an experience where maybe, hypothetically, it's the evening or it's at night, and there's thoughts arising that are concerns about what you've got to do the next day, or maybe where a conversation or a project left off? In recognizing that does not exist, the thoughts about it exist. The actuality of it is nowhere in perception, and it actually does not exist. The more that's allowed to be seen, the less any thoughts like that even pop up anymore. And it just gets very, very clear that, just a way to put it, you're only ever tasked with right now direct experience, and that's it. There is no year from now. There is no 20 years from now. There's no 5 seconds ago. It's this and this only. How easy it is to appreciate this. And on the contrary, how easy it is to take it for granted otherwise. It's no word defines it. I hope we covered that in the beginning. It's ineffable. Even all the words that point to it are also it. There's nothing separate that can point to it. Should we take a pinch more intimate? Because it is crazy.
All right, I have one question.
Yes.
Do other people's direct experiences exist?
That's such a great question. Let me make sure that I heard the wording right. Did you say, do other people's experience exist?
Yeah. like direct experience.
So yes, but with some explanation, some details. Um, if 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 there are other people in your direct experience, let's start there, and then kind of go to from their direct, from their perspective, from their lens. Um, when someone's in your direct experience, is there any direct experience that they have a perspective such as you do?
I don't really think so. Like right now, I only see your kind of body moving.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing that would suggest that you have an internal experience.
Right. So that your direct experiences of this room, really of the screen and of Phil, but is anywhere, I'm kind of just asking the same thing again to really make it more tangible, to solidify it, included in the direct experience right now, is there any of Phil directly experiencing you?
That's like a quite a difficult question. I'm not really sure. Do you mean by is there like a mental construct of you having experience, or
Yes,
I'm
that's
not sure what you mean by that question.
you've got it. That's exactly what I'm pointing to. There could be thoughts that Phil has a direct experience, but is that in perception?
The thought is in perception, but your direct experience only exists in my perception as a thought.
Right, right. So another way to propose that, to try to draw out some clarity there, is, can a perceiver perceive a perceiver?
Yeah, I have no idea how to answer that question.
Well, but I think that you actually do, because it's the same question. It's just put a little bit more recessed as a perceiver. So
do you mean can I perceive a? Sorry, go on.
we can check this. So there are recessed lights on the ceiling in front of me. How many are there?
I don't know.
Right, and there's a very specific sound that is very faint, and I don't think that the microphone's picking it up. Can you tell me what it is?
No.
So again, is there any direct experience of what, so to speak, so far, of what is in my direct experience?
Well, you've told me about it, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't see the lights or the sound or hear the sound.
Right. So like if I was a camera and the camera was making sound, there would be a direct experience of a camera and of the sound, but there wouldn't be any sort of behind the camera seeing of you. That would be the assumption.
Yeah.
If it was an assumption, it would just be assumed.
Yeah. So are you saying the assumption is your experience?
If there is an assumption, it's direct. It's the direct experience of the thought that there is a perceiver.
Okay.
And then why would that assumption arise? If you then kind of bring it back to you, it would be based on the assumption that I myself am perceiving.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard this. If you haven't, maybe we should fill in the blank. But if you have, it's often said that there is not a perceiver and a perceived, and or that there is not a perceiver whichever perceives a perceiver. What I'm suggesting is a pinch different. There's no such thing as a perceiver, and or there is no such thing as a perceived.
Okay, my mind is like already blown now, so yeah, I don't have to say.
The solipsistic view, in one way, it can be taken either way, and both ways are false. But the solipsistic view is that this is the only point of perception, and that the notion that there is any other point is false. Which is like sort of like saying there's one sphere, and not necessarily Phil, but the awareness is center of the sphere, and there's one sphere, right? You've probably been familiarized with this version of solipsism at some point. I think it's easier to explain aspects like this visually. So like these are very handy. So like this is what I just call the somewhere sphere. So if there's just the emptiness of this room, is it the same emptiness outside of the room? The space, maybe that's a better word. Is the space of the room that you're in the same as the space beyond it?
Are you saying like are they connected?
Well,
Or
I'm saying are they separated? Is there this space and this or that space?
I don't think so.
Right. So like
Unless you count like the literal thought that's separating it.
like this wall behind me, before this house was built, there was the space, and then the house was built, and now the wall is there. Does the wall actually divide the space, or is the wall built in the same one space?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Yeah, it doesn't. It's just kind of there in the space, but doesn't
Right.
kind of divide the space.
If we removed that wall, there wouldn't be some kind of missing space where the wall was. There would still be the space where the wall was built. And likewise, even though generally it's referred to as outer space, as in beyond the Earth's atmosphere, does it make sense that somebody named that outer space, but there isn't inner space and outer space? It's a distinction, perhaps for science, generally speaking, but there's no actual divide. There's oxygen and no oxygen.
Even in science, all particles are just like infinitesimally small, so they don't even take up space.
Right.
So the particles don't divide space either.
Right, exactly. So back to the question of why does it, I'm slightly paraphrasing it, but why does it seem like there is a perceiver, or why does it seem like there's awareness and perceived, even if it's awareness appearing as, to the solipsistic extent? Does that make sense so far? I'd rather take it slow, hear some questions, catch everybody up, than proceed if it's not quite grasped.
Sorry, I've been speaking a lot. Does anyone else have anything?
Sorry, could you repeat that last part? What's grasped?
That I think there's a link in the mentioning of the direct experience and in the sphere. I think there's an assumption that starts to come in that basically is solipsistic. Am I the only one? That type of color. And so what I'm saying is there is no, so it's like saying, am I the only observer or am I the only perceiver? What I'm suggesting is the answer is no, but more so, there is no observer. There is no perceiver. That's an assumption. So before we even get to, is there another one? What I'm saying is bring it back home, and there isn't a perceiver present right now. There is no observer right now, already. And then once we're all on that page, and if it takes a half hour, that's a half hour well spent, as far as I'm concerned. But once we're all on that page, then I would like to move forward with kind of the next step, the next pointing in direct experience.
I just don't entirely see that, because when I hear that, there's a bit of a reaction, and so it seems like I'm hearing it.
Well, right, but completely flip that. That's exactly accurate. You don't see that. That's perfect. The thought, there can be the thought, there's a perceiver, I'm the perceiver. There's an observer, I'm the observer. But you're exactly right that you don't see that, as in it's not seen, it's not in perception. To really just completely confront that, if let's say that I'll play the devil's advocate role and suggest there is a perceiver. Somebody point to the perceiver.
Or just point at your body.
Well, but that's a body. In what way, how is the body, in direct experience of perception, how is the body perceiving?
I'm seeing it.
I think the squares all shifted. I think somebody bailed. That's enough for me. I'm out. So I'm seeing it. So now go to perception, and literally, physically speaking, point to I'm seeing it. Can you?
I can see how there's not like a you or a me seeing it, but it's heard. Like what's being said is being registered. I don't know by who.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all. That's you get the thoughts about like who's hearing it, but what's being said is heard, it's registered, it's responded to, and mm-hmm. Both bodies are like all the bodies in here have the capacity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I couldn't really be like
this.
But then the space of that I would say is me. Like I'm here.
Tell me if this is too far off or if this is pretty much saying the same thing. The conversation's happening, the sound is happening, the talking's happening. When the thought arises that I'm hearing, that is not actually happening. And so to kind of challenge that for the sake of drawing it out, can I'm hearing be pointed to? Or is it the thought I'm hearing?
It's the thought I'm hearing. But all this is known by me. And then we get back to like, but then you know what's going on as well.
Well, can the me, so if what's being said is, and again, I don't mean to be challenging at all, but to draw out the point, if the thought arises, it's known to me, then like return to perception and point to that me, which that thought is about.
Okay. Yeah. You can't really point to me.
So, is there any? Is everybody up to speed? Is there a lingering question? Because if there is I would much rather I'd rather hear it and we kind of talk through that. I don't want to jump ahead on anyone.
I just have a small like observation. Like sometimes when I do, I do kind of notice a perceiver, but I don't know if it's actually a perceiver. When I'm just like functioning in my daily life, I just assume that the one that perceives is just like this kind of point inside my head.
Mm-hmm. And is the assumption in right now, let's say in right now's direct experience, can that assumption be pointed to in perception?
I think it can actually, like it can appear as a thought, and I can kind of locate it in my head.
But is it in perception? What does that thought in your head, when you visually speaking see it, what shape is that thought? What color is that thought? What's the size of that thought?
It doesn't really like have a shape or color, but it does have an existence as a thought, if you know what I mean.
Right. As a thought, yes. And we could even kind of say, but there's more to that too. But for the sake of right now where we're at, yes. What I'm saying is it perceived? Is there a visual seeing of the thought? There's a visual seeing of the can. There's a visual seeing of the hand. Is there a visual seeing of a thought?
I don't think so.
Well, but is there?
No, I don't really know how to answer that question.
That's perfectly honest in my opinion. I think a step more accurate would be that no, I don't know any experience of seeing visually, perception-wise, of seeing a thought. I would not know what a thought looks like. If they took me down to the police station and they did a lineup of a whole bunch of stuff, I could not tell you which one is a thought because I have never seen a thought.
Yeah.
But
on the other hand, like, sorry, go on.
No, please go ahead.
Like there are other ways of perceiving without just visual perceiving, like sounds, for example, or feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't like see sounds, but I know that there are sounds. I can perceive sounds. So just because I can't visually perceive a thought, that doesn't mean that a thought can't be perceived. Like I should perceive a thought as a thought in the way that thoughts or the mind perceives thoughts in their own kind of way.
Well, where can you physically speaking use your finger and point to the mind, which is being accredited as the perceiver of the thoughts? Where is the mind?
This is like in here.
But are you seeing a mind in here, or is that the thought that it must be? An assumption, really. An assumption. Assumption's a purely positive word in my book.
I wouldn't say it's an assumption, but it feels that way.
So if I was to kind of bring that back to you, if I said, what does a mind feel like? Are you saying that you would know, from direct experience, you would know exactly what a mind feels like?
I guess what I'm experiencing now is what the mind feels like.
And what does a mind feel like?
Well, I guess what I'm experiencing now, I can't really put it into words. Like everything I'm experiencing now, like thoughts, sensations, colors, and sounds,
so
and feelings.
Is it agreeable that another way to phrase everything I'm experiencing now would just be direct experience?
Yeah.
So therefore, there wouldn't be a mind inside here, like behind the eyes. Direct experience would be the mind.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, but a lot of the time it does feel like there's like a little, like an entity behind my eyes that does everything and thinks everything. Whether that's like true or not, I'm not sure.
Well, what does it feel like when there is an entity behind the eyes or behind the mind? What does that feel like?
I kind of, I can't really describe it. It just feels like there's a pressure behind my eyes.
But an entity. How small is that entity? How big is that entity? What is that entity made out of?
Okay, yeah, I have no idea.
So again,
but it's have to answer that question.
I'm very much appreciating the input because it really does help draw out the clarity for everyone. The thoughts come up that behind here there's a mind, or behind here there's an entity. I'm not saying there is not an entity. I'm saying that there is not an entity behind here, just like there isn't something on the other side of this wall. In both cases, there's the thought that there is, but when we check direct experience, it reveals that it was the thought that there is. An entity isn't actually found. Something on the other side of this wall isn't actually found.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's kind of just a feeling, and then when I put my mind on it, it's not really there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just like you said about the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a very that there is feeling is not conditioning, but there's a worldwide conditioning that when a thought arises about feeling, the thought is true, as in it's believed that the thought actually describes or defines feeling. But without exception, any time that's actually inspected, there's no exception, it's always found that's a thought. It's a thought about perception, it's a thought about feeling. The thought isn't true. It doesn't actually, when I check perception, when I check feeling, I don't find what that thought was about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It does? Okay.
Well, it's hard to wrap my brain around it, but yeah.
Well,
I can see how I could wrap my brain around it.
Well, that would be another example. If you cannot think it, right? Wrap my brain around it. I can't wrap my brain around it is another way of saying I can't think it, right?
Yeah.
If you are interpreting that as you're not getting what's being said, that would be a misinterpretation. You 100% are getting what's being said, and what's being said is you can't wrap your mind around it because it's going to the other phrasing, you can't think perception. There's a direct experience of thoughts, and so let's say these are thoughts. There's a direct experience of perception. You can't think perception, and you can't perceive thoughts.
Yeah.
But
so what I've been trying to do is just kind of like conceptualize it, but I've just realized I can't do that.
Right. That's the liberating aspect to really, really notice. Not only you can't, but you never have. It was always assumed. Yeah. Conditioning would suggest thought and perception are like this. But direct experience reveals thoughts are directly experienced, perception is directly experienced. And feeling / sensation also directly experienced. So to really blow that up, how many occurrences, so to speak, have there been of a thought arising like, oh, I feel like this, or I feel like I don't want to do this, or I feel like this, I feel like this? None of those thoughts ever actually described feeling.
What about thoughts like what about like one of those when you're meditating, for example, and you feel this way, and you notice something, or something arises, and then there's a thought like something has arisen, like there's a tension somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would that be a true experience, or like there's an emotion here?
So the thought tension, right? That's a thought. Points to sensation, but it doesn't actually define what it is. The sensation is the raw, if you will. It is the sensation. The thought tension, we've learned, or again, conditioning would have it. That's a better way, I think, to say it. That the thought tension is what it points to. And what's being suggested here is there's the thought tension and there's the sensation. And that, another way to put it, awareness is directly aware of the thought tension, and awareness is directly aware of the sensation. The thought just doesn't define what that sensation really is, what the reality of it is, what the nature of it is. And perhaps the greater point is now what sensation really is unknown. It seems that it was known.
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense now.
Okay, and is anybody experiencing, I have no clue, Phil's in Crazy Town, I really am not grasping any of this. What is he talking about? Or are you all kind of on the same page? So here, and I think it's helpful to look at these to explain it, but first I guess a sort of bridge. Here's why a handful of specific thoughts get overlooked. So first, again, awareness is directly aware of thoughts, perception, and sensation. The thoughts come up, I, me, my, mine. M-I-N-E. I, me, my, mine. There's more, but that's enough to work with. And then something about perception or sensation. And therein is the implied, ever elusive separate self. It's only implied by believing the thoughts define perception and sensation. Let me give a specific example and then see if there's any questions that will help draw out some more clarity. I stubbed my toe. So the conditioning version is I stubbed my toe. The direct experience tells a bit of a different story by not telling any story at all, by not adding any interpretation to it. There's the sensation, right, of the toe. There's that sensation. And there's the thought, I stubbed my toe. If I was to, again, really check this in direct experience and say, can I point to the I? What would I find? Can the I, if I say the words, I stubbed my toe, it all points to the sensation. But if I was to say, now I'm going to point to the I, which that thought is about, where do I point? To the east?
I'd point here.
Right here?
Or here.
So,
Just backward.
and is the pointing to an I, or is it really, what's really implied there, there's awareness of the thought I. Is there really an I here? Like if I know I'm not trying to be sarcastic, maybe humorous, but the point really is to keep drawing out the conditioning versus the direct experience. If I was to grab with my finger and thumb that I and have a look at it, is that possible? And could I reach behind me and pull this I out to have a look at it? So would you agree there's the thought I, and then stub my toe today, but there's the thought I, but then when I check and say, where is this I can't actually find it. Or I think an equal way to say it, or an agreeable way to say it, is, I don't know. And do you see how conditioning would be that I equals this body, this guy, this person, this male, this human? But then when we check direct experience, where is this person? Where is this, the I? Where is this guy? In this direct experience, and again, you got to take that and put it in direct experience. Where is this person that thought's about? There isn't. There's the thought. What the thought's about is not found in perception, and certainly is not found in sensation. Crazy? Let's take a quick poll. Crazy or making a whole bunch of sense?
Makes sense.
I kind of.
So when it's not quite yet clicking, right? When it's not yet clear, when it's not yet making sense, without fail, some thought comes up to the contrary. And the way to clarity is the expression of whatever that thought is. Did any thoughts come up like, well, it doesn't quite click yet because it isn't totally clear, it doesn't make sense, I'm not feeling it because, and what would that because be?
It clicks for me now, but the thought comes up about how it's not going to click for me in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Same for me, actually.
And then yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The incredibly honest group of apparent people. Like, it's not going to click for me in the future either, in all honesty. Do you see what I'm saying there? Will you ever be in a future?
No.
And there's only so much I can say, or only so many times I can say it, but I hope the sentiment that's coming across is this isn't meant to be challenging in any way. The point is drawing out the objections, the thoughts that object, so that they're drawn out. So there's no objections, so that it's seen clearly. Another way to draw that out is, let's actually go now to the future. So go now to the future. See what is in perception in the future. And then return to now, and then share what was found in the future.
I get what you're saying.
In one way, it sounds sarcastic as all get out. But I hope you're saying the point is that it helps by attempting to do what the thought is implying. What is realized is there's no possibility of going to a future because it's the thought I won't get it in the future. And that thought would be perfectly accurate. You will not get it in a future. I will not get it in the future. Why is that? I will never be, I cannot be in a future because there isn't a future. There's the thought future, but there is no future. Another way to put that is, where is this future in perception? So that kind of brings us, in a way, I do want to get to the original question, but it brings us back to the very beginning, in the sense that now we could say, on the other side of this wall, there's the future. And is it perfectly clear that that would be an assumption or a thought believed? There's the thought that there's something on the other side of the wall, but when I check direct experience, when I check perception, there isn't anything on the other side of the wall. There might be the thought, the assumption that there is, but direct experience dictates there is not. Same with the future. There can be the thought, time's passing, and there's going to be a future. But if I check direct experience and sort of call myself out on that assumption and say, point to this future that this thought's about, where do I point? And then is the recognition, it's the thought. There isn't really something on the other side of the wall, although there can be the thought that there is. There isn't really a future, although there can be the thought that there is. Is that making sense?
Yeah. Kind of.
The moving thumbs up emoji is priceless. Much appreciated. So we'll come back to there aren't two perceivers. But while we're here, well, what is the point of there being thoughts about this future then, right? Like, is that some just haphazard, wasteful design of reality? Why, if there's no future, why are there thoughts about as if there is, right? Does that come to mind?
I feel like the thoughts about the future like make sense. Like the why of it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really a waste because it's really helpful, I guess, to do stuff in the real world. Like, and then like I have to, like the thought, like, you know, I have to do stuff tomorrow. I have a meeting tomorrow, an interview tomorrow, or work tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Even though there's no tomorrow and it's just an ever-changing present, the idea of a tomorrow is quite useful.
Yes, 100% yes. There can be the thought, tomorrow I'll do this. And again, I'm saying that in the light that we've already recognized that I isn't present. But there's I was going to say usefulness, but brilliance, I think, is much more accurate. There's a brilliance as to why it can be the experience of that thought. Because there can be the thought, tomorrow I'm going to experience this, or I'm going to do this. And then there can be other thought, no, tomorrow I'm going to do this. And then there can be another thought, no, actually, tomorrow I'm going to do this other thing. And whichever you focus on, this becomes. Let me be more specific, a body does not at any point move through time. But that which is focused on this, the body never leaves, this becomes. It's becoming either way. What it's becoming right, is the brilliance of that the thought can arise, maybe I'll do this tomorrow. And then there's a, yeah, maybe not. And another thought can arise, maybe I'll do this instead. Whichever thought, and that thought can be let go, and another thought will arise. Maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do X, and that thought can be let go. And then another thought will arise, maybe I'll do Y. That thought can be let go, and another thought will arise, maybe I'll do Z. Is that making sense, and does that check out with your direct experience? The underlying implication is the phrase, you create your own reality, comes to mind. That's not something you could do in a future. That's already the case. It just simply points to that's what's already the case. When we recognize the I, the me, the my, the mine is nowhere to be found, what remains is the very creator of reality, which has never moved, has never went through time. It's simply been present now. Too crazy? Not crazy enough? I feel like Kevin's like, it's not crazy enough. We haven't even started.
Yeah, you're not scared.
All right. So back to the space. If all there was space, and of course, please recognize the word space points. I'm not, it's a thought and it's a word. The word space doesn't define the emptiness inside the walls. It's just a pointing word. If all there was is the space or the emptiness, there would be no experience whatsoever. Is that agreeable? So in the sense, you might say, well, but awareness would be aware of the space. So the experience would be of the space. So that's why I'm saying take the word space away and just leave, there's just awareness. So if there's just awareness, is there any experience for awareness?
I guess the awareness is the experience.
What then would the awareness as the experience, what would be experiencing? And what would be therefore aware of the experience of awareness?
They're like the same thing. So I guess there's it's hard to describe. It's like they're just the same thing.
Yeah.
So there's no like
awareness.
distinction.
Awareness would be aware. What other than awareness? What is aware?
That sounds like a trick question.
It is. It is. Because let's say that you said a person. So other than awareness, people are aware. Well, what's aware of the thought? People are aware. Awareness is aware of the thought. People are aware. So only awareness is aware. Which is incredibly simple and self-evident. And yet at the same time, the prevailing paradigm is that humans are aware. And even in a projected sense, that animals are aware. But is everyone 100% on the same page that it is as incredibly simple as it is? Only awareness is aware. Only awareness has the quality or property or aspect of being aware. So for awareness, if there's just awareness, is there any experience? It's a tricky question, right? Because of the whole perception and thoughts and sensation situation. The messages are great and appreciated, but they're only 1/3 of whatever it said. And I'd have to leave this screen to see the whole message, unfortunately.
I think Javier just said no, because there needs to be someone. There needs to be experience. To be experienced, there must be a perceiver.
Thank you.
That message.
More or less, yes. Right, exactly. So awareness wouldn't be a thing, or is not a thing, which is experienced. So in awareness not being a thing, as in a finite thing, inherently awareness has zero limitation whatsoever. No form. So for there to be any of what we're calling an experience for awareness, awareness can't go to the movie theater because of awareness's inherent infinitude. Infinite meaning no finite. So there isn't this other finite, there isn't awareness and then this finite thing, the movie theater, that awareness can go to. There's infinite awareness. There's no problem whatsoever. There's no concern. There's no anything. There's just the formless, infinite nature of awareness, or that awareness is. Because awareness has no restriction whatsoever, no limitation, no friction of any kind, no assertion, no thing which is or could act upon it whatsoever, awareness is free to appear as anything. Does that make sense? It might be a big step, maybe it isn't, I don't know. As in, awareness can just be what we otherwise would call something. And then it seems like that something would then be experienced by awareness. So if awareness was to, and I promise I'm coming back around to the perceiver perception answer. If awareness was to appear as this sphere, which, by the way, I don't know how good you can see it, but there's like a little universe made out of white bubbles in here. So let's say awareness, which has no limitation whatsoever and is formless, can appear as anything at all. So it appears as a universe. So that right now the space around is the awareness, and awareness appears as the universe, the sphere with a universe appearing inside of it. A closed system which isn't made from anything other than awareness. Is there an experience for awareness?
I would say no.
Mm-hmm. And why would there not be an experience quite yet for awareness?
Because there's nothing to look at, like, per se, like, as like not itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well put. So awareness appears as a sphere and appears as a universe inside the sphere. But to awareness, there is no sphere because it is awareness. This space is still the formless awareness, and this is still the awareness, and awareness is self-aware, is aware. It's the only thing, so to speak, that is aware. So it certainly is aware that this is itself. So how would awareness make it such that there is an experience of the universe awareness is being or appearing as? How would infinite awareness believe there's a universe, have an experience of a universe?
I'm not sure how to answer that besides just say that it would be like this. Like it would seem like I'm a body. I'm separate from what I'm looking at. Like I'm an agent in the thing.
Mm-hmm. So not by any means to discount that. That's a very great point. The bodies are all in the universe, which is the sphere. All the bodies are in here. So for awareness, there's no potential for the believing that it's a body, because all there is the sphere, which isn't a sphere to awareness. It's awareness to awareness. Awareness is totally aware that it's appearing as this sphere. So to awareness, there is no sphere. It's just awareness might say, it's myself. And all the bodies, this one and all those, are appearing in this sphere. So what's the only way, the only possible way that infinite awareness could make it seem to itself that this is a universe and not itself? There's only one way.
It would have to see it from a point of view, a specific point of view.
And so it being perfection, would you agree that awareness would go about that in the most efficient, simplest way possible? As opposed to awareness would go through a whole bunch of completely unnecessary rigmarole to arrive there. Or does it make sense that infinite awareness would go about it in the simplest manner? So far there's this space representative of awareness. Awareness appears as the sphere. Within it is appearing as what we call the universe, which is really, let me kind of pause here, this. It's not the thought of this bigger thing, a universe. When I'm saying the universe, I mean your direct experience. This is the universe. But not quite yet to awareness, because awareness is infinite and is aware that it is infinite. So as Kevin was pointing to, all that would be required would be a second sphere. And the nature of the sphere would be, of course, what?
Awareness.
Awareness, exactly. So to awareness, being this sphere, it would still be awareness, because the sphere, there's nothing to the sphere other than awareness. Yet to awareness, it would have veiled its own infinitude. Awareness would have went from being aware that these two spheres are itself awareness, to forgetting that it's infinite and is what's appearing as these two spheres. In forgetting, there would be like, what's this infinitude thing? What's infinite? I don't know what infinite is, right? Infinite awareness would be saying, I don't know what infinite is, but I know that I'm in a universe, I'm in a world. Is that making sense?
Are you saying that there's two spheres?
Yes.
And one is in the other? Okay.
Well, there's two spheres just like this. Trying to find a darker background. This has what we call the universe. But again, bear in mind when I'm saying a universe, I'm not saying a universe on the other side of that wall. I'm talking about this, so to speak, your direct experience. And not, so to speak, you, awareness, your direct experience, the world which you're being.
Yeah.
And this lens sphere, or these, it serves as a way or some way for it to seem like you are inside of this sphere of a universe. So it's another way to point is it's almost like, okay, there's a sphere that's a universe or experience, but for awareness it's a sphere. It doesn't really seem like some experience, it's just totally me. It's still awareness. Then by being this sphere, it's as if this sphere goes like this. And then now it seems like I'm inside this sphere.
Okay, that makes sense. But is the second sphere the same as or made of the first sphere? I don't understand how there can be two separate spheres.
The experience of, and somebody help me out with how clearly can you see that? Does that look as if there's a smaller sphere inside of a bigger sphere?
Oh yeah.
It's tricky to kind of get the lighting.
It's kind of blurry, so I can't really see it properly.
So it might be easier.
Okay, yeah, now I can see it.
Visually to just do this. So from your perspective, here's the veiling lens, which is making it seem like you're inside this universe.
Yeah.
I presume it's also what the term through the looking glass refers to. So through, if you will, through this lens sphere, it makes it seem like it makes it seem to awareness that awareness is inside of this sphere, which is a universe, which is this direct experience. And then another term for infinite awareness, another pointing term for our self, is infinite intelligence. So if this space that is awareness veils itself with a sphere, it will no longer be obvious to awareness that it is infinitely intelligent, and it will now seem like there is one thought at a time. Infinite intelligence then veils itself. Now its experiences through here, and then there's one thought at a time. Is there really one thought at a time? No, there's awareness. Awareness is being what we're calling experience. But there isn't anything to experience other than the awareness that's being it. That gets covered up, and I'm going to say this in a trick question way, right? Everybody present right now knows exactly what I mean when I say your peripheral vision. Like, it's not this, it's kind of more this, like the peripheral vision, right? And then the way that we all know that is by believing the thought peripheral vision. Is the thought peripheral vision perceived out here? Or is there just the thought, and the thought is believed, that that's what this is?
It would just be the thought.
Right. Without believing the thought, there's no such thing as peripheral vision, yet there's no such thing as my hand either, but to communicate, I can clearly see my hand. I can still see my hand. Now my hand is right on the border of what I believed was peripheral vision, and now I can no longer see my hand. But there's the potential for the assumption that my hand still exists. And what I'm suggesting is that it didn't in the first place. The thought, my hand, appears. They're never, this is not my hands, whether they're here or here. There's the believing of the thought, my hands, and there's the direct experience of perception. The thought is not in perception. There is no seeing the thought. There's the thought and the believing of the thought, that the thought defines perception. Make sense, or did Phil just go to crazy town? Solo.
Total sense.
Makes sense.
So then, now finally, kind of back to the original question or inquiry. Why does it seem like there's a perceiver in here and a perceiver in there? If somebody's in the room with you, why does it seem like, it's almost a harsh way to put it, but I think it draws out the point. Why does it seem like solipsism is either true or it's not true? Either I'm the real one and they're the cardboard cutout, they're just an appearance, or we're both real. Is that a fair way to kind of draw out what that original question, really the heart of it, what it gets down to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So solipsism is that all that can be known is my own mind. And then I think the next logical question is, my finite mind or my infinite mind? Is that the next logical step in the inquiry?
Yeah, kind of.
So in getting to the, are they cardboard cutouts? And I'm the only real one. I'm the perceiver, and there's nobody in that body perceiving. Just I am, right? Or is it the case that there's a perceiver experience here and equally a perceiver experience there? And what I'm proposing is it's the third option, that the finite solipsism is false and the infinite solipsism is false. There is no perceiver in here. And only on that assumption does it seem like now there's a question of, is there a perceiver in that body which is seeming to be perceived? What I'm suggesting is there's no perceiver in that body and there's no perceiver in this body. The assumption, and this one might take a minute to digest, if it does it all, and it's fine either way, but go back to that first subtle but very important assumption. All that can be known is my own mind, whether that's finite or infinite. The entire theory hangs on the ballast of the knowing. All that can be known, we'll condense it. All that can be known is mind. Where is this mind, whether it's finite or infinite? Where is
You said
this
mind?
mind? M-I-N-D.
Okay.
So to bust through this perceiver perceived or two perceivers inquiry is the same as, is solipsism true or is it untrue? And solipsism is essentially all that can be known is my mind or is mind, whether that's finite mind or infinite mind. The knowing is the important aspect. Is there any knowing of a finite mind? If so, where is it? There's the thought that there is, and when we check the direct experience of perception, is there a finite mind found anywhere? Is it in the refrigerator? Did you forget it in the bathroom? Is there in perception any experience of a finite or infinite mind whatsoever?
No.
I tend to agree, but I want to keep it open for a second. Anyone? Anyone seeing, perceiving a finite or infinite mind anywhere?
Well, there's this experience, but I don't know if it's not like infinite because it doesn't contain every mind. It's just this experience. Like.
And do you see how if it was, there's a mind, finite or otherwise, or infinite, that is in this experience or that is this experience, that would be known. If there was, and it was true that there was, it would be known. So what I'm saying is to not be too confusing, what I'm suggesting is there isn't the knowing. The assumption is that it would be known or it would not be known. Where's the knowing?
What do you mean by knowing?
Right. That's the point. Again, A+ honesty. The suggestion is that would never be known because there is no knowing.
How's everyone finding this, by the way?
This is good. Kind of,
hilarious. Listening to him talk.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out where the good news is, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason that this is important, but I'm still not seeing it.
My mind was definitely not prepared for this.
Is this the first one you come to?
Yeah.
Oh, these are great.
I would say the benefit is when you feel like thoughts pulling away from the body, that like dissolves contractions. That's what you really want.
As well.
Yeah, I only heard the last bit of that, but absolutely. When there's the thought, there's a corresponding between the thought that isn't indicative of direct experience and the body being awareness, being direct experience, cannot help but respond to charactering here, obviously, but contracting. That's not accurate. That's not me. In the finite sense, this glass sphere that I'm holding in my hand, we talk about it as if it's a separate thing. What it points to, as in this lens, what's the assumption would be peripheral vision or my hearing, right? That's what this points to. Being that it's made of infinite awareness or infinity, or that it is infinite, how many of the bodies in here, how many of the bodies in here can this be the, so to speak, point of view of 4? 1? 5?
Infinite, right?
A million? 7 billion? If every couple has a kid right now, 8 billion? 9 billion? Exactly. It's made of infinity. There isn't anything to it but infinite awareness. Numbers don't apply. Numbers are thoughts that appear in here about there being separate things in here. And meanwhile, the actuality is there aren't separate things. There aren't even two separate spheres. There's awareness. Albeit appearing as these, there's awareness apparently having an experience. And it would be great to say also known as this, but there isn't the something which is knowing of this. Minus the knowing, there's just this. And can we turn the crazy dial to 11 by taking the this out of it? Because if there's no this, what's left?
I don't know.
Right.
Well, I can't really describe it with language, because
right.
This is like the only way to like even talk about it is to use like words like this. And once you get rid of this, like even if you know it, like you can't talk about it.
Yeah. Even if you know it, you didn't, right?
Which is, I guess there's no knowing because you can't. There's no communication. Like communication isn't possible once you're like this far.
Yeah. Yes. And then the miraculous aspect is there's this experience of communication. It's not possible. It's
real quick.
Miraculous.
So like, it seems like if I were to see one of you guys in real life, and we're just talking, ruminating on whether or not there's someone I'm talking to is unnecessary, because very like the very direct experiences of like connection and joy, and not so much of like, is that a person or are they a cardboard cutout?
Yeah.
Like that seems like more unnecessary.
Yes. Concern, what do they think of me, goes out the window. Embarrassment goes out the window.
Why?
Who's thinking of me? That's me. There's no thinker. That is a slightly coarse way to put it. There's bodies in the sphere of the universe, and then one thought appears at a time in this lens. There isn't someone else in here thinking of me. There's no reason to believe there is. There's no reason to be nervous that there is. There's no reason to be concerned with the thought that arises in the lens that's judgmental about Phil, let's say, right? It's the same lens. It's not someone else. It's the infinite lens. And the nature of the lens of the spheres is unconditional. The infinite intelligence, that awareness, that's being the lens, is unconditional. And then by veiling infinite intelligence, by being the lens, there seems to be an experience of thought. And that's the only place conditions are found. But it's not a place at all. It's awareness.
That helped. I think there might still be something I'm missing, because it seems like there's either social anxiety and judgment, and then also connection, or there's or I'm alone and there's no judgment and no social anxiety. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because there can be no condition placed upon that which is alone, which is unconditional. There's nothing lacking, there's nothing missing, there's no concern whatsoever. These would all be conditions, they would all be thoughts arising. All there is awareness, and if the question, and we do have to wrap up today's call. FYI, if you haven't seen, there's another one tomorrow at noon Eastern time. Any seeming condition is literally nothing other than the thought, or a thought, which is just the nature of you, awareness, appearing as two spheres so that there's an experience. It's not to worry about a future that there isn't. It's not to worry about what a thinker thinks, which there isn't. It's just for this. This right now, all there ever is this right now. And that's the whole point. It's just to enjoy it. Going back to what you had mentioned about the corresponding contraction. So does it make a lot of sense if the thought arises in here about the bodies that are appearing here, if the thought is, oh, I'm worried about what she thinks of me, the corresponding response of the body in here is to contract. It's almost a defensive, like it's sort of like, it might be subtle, it might be not be subtle, but it's sort of like a defending of the body based in the believing that me equals the body. And the contraction and the tension and the stress and the belief of lack or shortage or any of the above are all the clear message, that's not your identity. The body is not me. I mean, how does it feel right now when I say your identity certainly is not limited to a body? The body is what you are appearing as, so there is this experience.
Kind of good, but also there's just that the thoughts, kind of the rumination a little bit about like the aloneness.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to get too into that because I know we have to wrap up.
Yep, and we could pick up on it tomorrow. Not pick on it, pick up on it tomorrow. But that aloneness is a thought that arises, and it's no more than a thought, and it's as if it's a condition upon unconditional. So what's unconditional does not have or know a condition about unconditional. It's appearing as a lens, and within it a thought. There's no problem whatsoever with the infinite, which I think is a far better pointing word than alone, because alone requires there's something else or someone else which isn't here, which I'm away from, so I'm alone. Unconditional infinite awareness is not really alone. There is no concern. So when the thought comes up, does it feel really wonderful? Does the thought alone feel wonderful? Does it completely resonate with the nature of our being? Or does it feel more contracting, as in the body is the body, which is the appearance of our infinite being? The body can't help but respond like, no, it's not in agreement. It's not accurate. It's not something that there needs to be concern over. This body's just like, it's all good.
Yeah.
I don't know how those bodies communicate. That's the language of this one. It's all good. It's all unconditional. Don't apply conditions. Just enjoy it.